Have you ever been told your 25 years of Navy service and cybersecurity experience was outdated military thinking that's holding the company back? That happened to me on a Tuesday morning in December, sitting across from a 31-year-old CEO who'd never seen a day of real service in his life. I'm Michael Rodriguez, 58 years old, and I've been protecting networks and infrastructure since most people thought the internet was something you used to send emails. After 20 years in the Navy as an electronics technician and another 25 years securing corporate systems, I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. The meeting started normal enough. Tyler Walsh, our new CEO, had called me into his corner office at Midwest Manufacturing Corp here in Akron. The kid had bought our automotive parts company 8 months earlier with private equity money, talking big about digital transformation and Industry 4.0. Real Silicon Valley stuff that sounded impressive to the board, but made no sense on a factory floor that's been running Ford and GM parts for 40 years. Tyler was leaning back in his 3000 ergonomic chair, wearing jeans and a hoodie to work like he was still in his startup days. "Michael," he said. "Not Mike like everyone else called me. Let's discuss your compensation review. I'd requested a 12% raise." Nothing crazy for someone who'd built their entire security infrastructure from the ground up, who'd prevented 3 major cyber attacks in the past 18 months alone. With Elena's medical bills getting higher and Isabella starting her junior year at Ohio State, we needed that extra money. Danny was deployed in Afghanistan again, and we were trying to keep his college fund intact for when he got back. But Tyler had other ideas. "Here's the thing," he continued, pulling up a PowerPoint that looked like it was designed by a college intern. "We're pivoting toward AI-driven security solutions. Machine learning, automated threat detection, cloud-based responses. The board feels we need to invest in next-generation technologies rather than legacy military protocols." Legacy military protocols? That's what he called 25 years of keeping their data safe and their production lines running. He clicked to the next slide, showing some fancy charts about agile security frameworks and DevSecOps integration. Then came the real kicker. "I think you should consider transitioning to an advisory role," Tyler said with that practiced smile. "They teach you in business school. Maybe explore some early retirement options. The pension plus Social Security, you'd be looking at a pretty comfortable situation." I sat there listening to this kid who'd never defended anything more important than his startup's user data explain why my experience was obsolete. This was the same guy who'd asked me last month why we couldn't just download better antivirus when our perimeter sensors flagged suspicious traffic from what turned out to be Chinese IP addresses. "I appreciate the feedback," I told him, "that's all. No arguments, no pushback." I collected my folder of security reports and walked out. But something had shifted inside me. For 25 years at this company, I'd been the guy who stayed late to patch vulnerabilities, who answered calls at 3 a.m. when production systems threw alerts, who wrote detailed threat assessments that apparently nobody read until something went wrong. I'd learned in the Navy that when command makes a decision based on incomplete intelligence, you document everything and prepare for the consequences. This felt like one of those moments back at my desk. I pulled up the network monitoring dashboard. Everything showed green. 0 incidents, 0 downtime, 0 breaches. All because I'd spent years building systems that worked even when people made mistakes. Around me, the office hummed with its usual energy. People talking about sprint planning and user experience optimization. The same buzzwords Tyler had thrown at me like weapons. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my personal laptop and scrolled through old messages. Buried in my inbox was an email from Colonel Patricia Hayes, now CEO at Secure Logic Consulting up in Chicago. She'd reached out 6 months ago asking if I'd ever consider making a move. I'd ignored it then, thinking loyalty meant something in corporate America. This time I replied. Her response came back within an hour. "Could we set up a call?" Nothing formal, just a conversation between 2 veterans who understood what protecting critical infrastructure really meant. The call was different from any conversation I'd had at work in months. Patricia didn't ask about my age or whether I could keep up with modern threats. She asked about the attacks I'd stopped, the protocols I'd built, the factory floor systems I'd secured against foreign interference. "We need someone who understands that security isn't about moving fast and breaking things," she said during our video call. "It's about understanding that when things break in manufacturing, people lose jobs. When they break in defense, people lose lives." She talked about Secure Logic's approach, how they valued institutional knowledge, how they understood that the most sophisticated attacks often used old techniques that young analysts had never encountered. How experience wasn't overhead, it was their competitive advantage. When she mentioned compensation, the numbers were 45% higher than anything I'd ever earned. But what mattered more was the respect. Senior Director of Infrastructure Security, real authority to build teams and set policies. Most importantly, she offered something Tyler never had, recognition for what military discipline actually means in cybersecurity. I didn't accept immediately. 25 years of habit told me to think it through, to consider all angles. But sitting at my kitchen table that night with Elena, stirring her coffee slowly because of the arthritis in her hands, the decision felt obvious. "They don't see what you prevent," Elena said quietly. "They only see what they pay for." She was right. Nobody gets promoted for disasters that don't happen. In the Navy, we understood that the best operations were the ones where nothing went wrong, where threats were neutralized before they became problems. Corporate America had forgotten that lesson. I submitted my resignation the next morning. 2 weeks' notice. Professional and clean. No drama, no accusations, just a simple letter stating my last day would be Friday, January 15th. I walked it to HR myself and handed it to Jennifer Walsh, who'd processed my benefits for the last 8 years. "Mike, what's this about?" she asked, scanning the letter with genuine surprise. "Time for a change," I said. "Nothing personal." Word spread fast in our open office layout. By lunch, Tyler had called an emergency meeting. Same corner office, same expensive furniture. But now his Silicon Valley swagger looked forced. Like someone had told him his startup pitch wasn't working. "This is unexpected," he started, like my resignation was some kind of natural disaster. "We really need to discuss transition planning." Transition planning. 25 years of institutional knowledge, and he wanted it documented in 2 weeks. What systems would fail? Which vendors couldn't be trusted? How do you transfer the instinct that tells you when something's not right on the network? What would it take to reconsider? Tyler asked, leaning forward with sudden interest. "We could revisit the compensation discussion. Maybe look at a different role structure. Too late for that." Respect offered under pressure isn't respect at all. It's panic. "I'm committed to helping with the handover," I said. Pete Morrison seems like the logical choice to take over the core responsibilities. Pete was solid. 45 years old, former Army engineer who understood networks and had been with the company for 7 years. But he'd never built a security framework from scratch. Never lived through a coordinated attack. Never testified before regulators about compliance failures. The next 2 weeks felt surreal. I documented everything I could, but 25 years of experience doesn't transfer in 80 hours. Some knowledge lives in your head, earned through midnight crisis calls, and learning from mistakes nobody else remembers. Pete absorbed what he could. He asked good questions, took careful notes, stayed late to understand the monitoring systems I'd built. But I could see the weight settling on him. The realization that he was inheriting responsibility for systems he hadn't designed, protocols he hadn't tested, relationships with vendors he'd never managed. "The threat landscape changes so fast," he said during one of our handover sessions. "How do you keep up with everything?" "You don't keep up," I told him. "You stay ahead. You assume every system will be attacked. Every user will make mistakes. Every vendor will eventually disappoint you. Then you build accordingly." He nodded, but I could tell the philosophy felt overwhelming. It takes years to develop that kind of defensive mindset. You can't download it with the documentation. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk while the office buzzed with its usual energy. Same conversations about sprint goals and user engagement metrics. Same confidence that everything would continue running smoothly. They had no idea that the safety net was about to disappear. Tyler made a point of stopping by my desk for a public goodbye. Firm handshake, professional smile, wishes for future success. The whole performance felt hollow, but I played my part. "Don't be a stranger," he said. "We might have consulting opportunities down the road." I nodded politely and didn't mention that I'd already signed an offer letter with Secure Logic. My first month at the new company was like stepping into sunlight after years underground. Patricia's team asked questions instead of demanding quick fixes. They planned for worst-case scenarios instead of hoping for the best. When I proposed comprehensive security audits for manufacturing clients, nobody asked how much it would cost or how long it would take. They asked how thorough it would be. The work was challenging in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Real problems with complex solutions. Clients who understood that security wasn't a feature you added at the end, but a foundation you built from the ground up. We were helping a steel mill in Pittsburgh upgrade their industrial control systems when I got my first indication that things weren't going well back in Akron. A former colleague mentioned that Pete was working a lot of weekends, that some of the automated monitoring scripts I'd written were throwing errors nobody knew how to fix. Nothing catastrophic, just friction, the kind that slows everything down without anyone understanding why. Meanwhile, I was discovering what it felt like to work for people who valued what I brought to the table. Patricia had given me carte blanche to build our manufacturing security practice. We were winning contracts with automotive suppliers, steel producers, chemical plants, companies that couldn't afford to have their operations disrupted by cyberattacks. 3 weeks into my new job, Pete called me on a Saturday morning. His voice carried stress I recognized from my own early years. "Mike, we're seeing unusual traffic patterns. Looks like somebody's probing our external interfaces systematically. I've implemented basic countermeasures, but I'm not sure what else to look for." I could hear keyboards clicking in the background. Multiple people working on a weekend. The kind of all-hands response that happens when something feels bigger than routine maintenance. "What's the pattern?" I asked. "Systematic port scanning, but slow. Almost like they're trying not to trigger our automated defenses, and they're coming from multiple IP ranges that seem unrelated. Classic reconnaissance. The kind of patient, methodical probing that precedes sophisticated attacks. I'd seen it dozens of times, always followed by more serious attempts. "Have you escalated to Tyler?" he says to handle it internally. Doesn't want to alarm the board unless it's a confirmed threat. Classic Tyler. Don't report problems until they become disasters. I talked Pete through immediate steps to document the intrusion attempts, how to trace the traffic patterns, what signatures to look for in the logs. But I could tell he was overwhelmed. He was trying to handle a chess match with checkers experience. "Should I bring in outside consultants?" he asked. "That's above my pay grade now," I said, "but document everything. Timestamps, IP addresses, attack vectors. Whatever happens next, you'll want that paper trail." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and thought about that conversation. Part of me felt bad for Pete. He was a good guy, caught in a situation nobody had prepared him for. But another part of me felt vindicated. The problems I'd warned about for years were finally becoming visible. Elena found me staring out the window an hour later. "Work calling on weekends already?" she asked. "Old work," I said. "They're having some security issues." She poured her own coffee and sat across from me. "You're not thinking about helping them, are you?" "No," I said. "That bridge is burned. But I feel bad for Pete. Pete didn't make the decision to push you out," Elena reminded me. "He's just dealing with the consequences." She was right. The people who'd created this situation were the same ones who'd refused to invest in proper security infrastructure, who'd treated institutional knowledge like an expense instead of an asset. 2 weeks later, the real attack began. The news broke on a Wednesday morning. I was reviewing security assessments for a new client when Patricia knocked on my office door, her face grim. "Mike, you need to see this," she said, holding up her tablet. "Your old company just announced a major data breach." The headline hit like a punch to the gut. "Ohio manufacturing giant suffers massive cyber attack." Below it, a photo of the Midwest manufacturing headquarters I'd walked out of just 8 weeks earlier. I read the details with growing recognition. The attackers had exploited exactly the vulnerabilities I'd identified in my final security assessment. The same weaknesses I'd flagged as critical risks requiring immediate attention. The same report Tyler had marked as low priority, because fixing those issues would have required significant infrastructure investment. Customer data, financial records, proprietary designs for automotive components, employee information. Everything I'd spent 25 years protecting was now in the hands of criminals who'd sell it to competitors or foreign governments. The financial damage was staggering. Initial estimates put immediate response costs at $32 million. But that was just the beginning. Ford and GM had already suspended their contracts pending investigation. Lawsuits were being filed. Regulatory investigations launched. The company's stock price dropped 73% in 2 days. But what really caught my attention was buried in the third paragraph of the news coverage. The attack had started with the exact reconnaissance Pete had called me about. Those unusual traffic patterns had been the opening moves in a sophisticated campaign that took weeks to execute. Pete called me that afternoon. He sounded exhausted, defeated. "They're bringing in the FBI," he said, "and forensic consultants from 3 different firms. Everyone wants to know how this happened, how we missed it. Did you show them your incident logs from last month?" "That's the thing, Mike. Management is saying we should have escalated sooner, that we should have recognized the threat level. Tyler keeps asking why our security protocols didn't catch this. I almost laughed at the irony. The same protocols Tyler had wanted to replace with AI were now being questioned for not preventing an attack that human expertise might have stopped. What are the consultants saying? They want to review all our security documentation going back 2 years. They're particularly interested in recent staff changes and whether any institutional knowledge was lost during transitions. There it was, the question I'd been waiting for someone to ask. Pete, you need to preserve those incident reports from last month. Timestamps, everything. Document every escalation request and management response. This is going to get ugly, and you don't want to be holding the blame. 3 days later, I received a call I'd been expecting but dreading. Federal subpoena. The Senate Homeland Security Committee wanted to understand how a preventable breach had compromised critical American manufacturing infrastructure. The hearing was scheduled for April 20th. Senator Robert Davidson's office made it clear they were particularly interested in the timeline of events leading up to the breach, including any warnings that might have been ignored by corporate leadership. I spent the next week preparing my testimony with SecureLogic's legal team. The facts were straightforward, but the implications were explosive. Email records subpoenaed during the FBI investigation showed my final security assessment, marked as low priority by Tyler just 4 months before the exact vulnerabilities I'd identified were exploited. The hearing room was intimidating. Marble columns, mahogany panels, senators with serious expressions, and cameras recording every word. I'd briefed Pentagon officials about network security before, but never testified before Congress about a national security incident. Senator Davidson led the questioning. Mr. Rodriguez, you served as Senior Security Director at the affected company for how long? 25 years, Senator. 20 in the Navy before that. And in your final security assessment, did you identify the vulnerabilities that were exploited in this attack? Yes, sir. The attack vector was specifically outlined in my November report as a critical risk requiring immediate attention. He held up a printed email. According to documents provided by your former employer, this assessment was marked as low priority by executive leadership. Can you explain what that typically means in a corporate security context? Senator, it means the identified risks were acknowledged, but not considered urgent enough to allocate budget or resources for remediation. In your professional opinion, would addressing these vulnerabilities have prevented this breach? Yes, Senator. The attack relied entirely on the unpatched systems and outdated protocols I'd recommended for replacement. The room was dead quiet. You could hear photographers adjusting their cameras. Mr. Rodriguez, you left your position at this company approximately 8 weeks before the breach occurred. Was your departure related to disagreements over security priorities? This was the question that mattered, the one that would determine whether this hearing was about corporate negligence or simple bad luck. Senator, I requested a compensation adjustment that was denied. During that discussion, I was told that my military approach to security was inconsistent with the company's desire to move faster and more aggressively. I was advised to consider early retirement. Were you told specifically that your security protocols were slowing down business operations? Yes, Senator. I was told that AI-driven security solutions would be more efficient and cost-effective than human expertise. Senator Davidson leaned forward. To be clear, Mr. Rodriguez, you were essentially told that your 25 years of military and cybersecurity experience was obsolete. That's correct, Senator. The hearing continued for 3 hours. Other witnesses included Pete, who did his best to explain the timeline of events, and Tyler, who spent most of his time deflecting responsibility and talking about the company's commitment to cybersecurity investment. When Tyler was asked about my security assessment being marked low priority, he claimed it was part of a broader strategic review of infrastructure investments. When pressed about whether cost considerations had influenced security decisions, he fell back on prepared talking points about balancing multiple business priorities. The contrast was stark. Pete and I provided specific technical details, timestamps, and documented evidence. Tyler offered corporate speak and deflection. After my testimony, I walked out of the hearing room feeling something I hadn't expected: relief. For 25 years, I'd written reports and raised concerns and watched them disappear into management chains that prioritized quarterly earnings over long-term security. Now, finally, someone was asking the right questions. The media coverage was immediate and brutal, not because of political drama, but because it highlighted something most Americans were starting to understand: the real cost of treating cybersecurity as an expense rather than an investment. Tyler was fired 2 weeks after my testimony. The board brought in a new CEO with an actual manufacturing background. Someone who understood that security wasn't a feature you added at the end, but a foundation you built from the ground up. Pete left the company within a month, burned out from trying to rebuild what should never have been torn down. Last I heard, he took a position with a smaller firm that valued his experience over his ability to work 80-hour weeks cleaning up other people's mistakes. The lawsuits kept coming. Class action suits from customers whose data had been stolen. Shareholder suits claiming the board had failed in their fiduciary duty to protect company assets. Regulatory fines from the FTC that made the initial $32 million response cost look like pocket change. Meanwhile, my role at SecureLogic expanded in ways I couldn't have imagined. Patricia promoted me to Chief Security Officer and gave me a team of 12 analysts. We specialized in helping companies that had learned the hard way that security wasn't negotiable. The irony wasn't lost on me. My old company became one of our case studies in how not to handle cybersecurity. Their breach was a textbook example of what happens when leadership confuses speed with efficiency, innovation with recklessness. 6 months after the congressional hearing, I received recognition I'd never expected. The Department of Homeland Security invited me to join an advisory panel on critical infrastructure protection. Apparently, my story had resonated with lawmakers concerned about securing American manufacturing from foreign threats. The panel's mission was straightforward: figure out how to keep experienced professionals in the field instead of pushing them toward early retirement. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd been told their decades of experience were outdated military thinking. During our first meeting in Washington, I met others with similar stories. A former Air Force analyst who'd been right-sized for questioning cloud migration timelines. A defense contractor who'd been replaced by an AI system that lasted exactly 2 months before being supplemented by human oversight again. All of us had stories about being undervalued right up until the moment our expertise became desperately needed. The work was gratifying in a way I hadn't experienced in corporate America. We weren't just creating policies. We were changing how organizations thought about experience in rapidly evolving threats. Our recommendations became part of federal cybersecurity guidelines emphasizing the irreplaceable value of institutional knowledge and crisis experience. A year after leaving Midwest Manufacturing, I was invited to speak at the RSA Security Conference, the biggest cybersecurity gathering in North America. The keynote topic, Why Military Experience Matters in Cybersecurity. Standing on that stage looking out at 5,000 security professionals, I thought about Tyler's corner office and his dismissive talk about outdated military thinking. The audience was full of people like me, veterans who'd seen attacks evolve, who'd learned to think like adversaries, who understood that the most sophisticated threat isn't always the newest one. Technology changes fast, I told them, but attackers don't. They use the same social engineering, the same patience, the same understanding of human weakness they've always used. The tools evolve, but the fundamentals remain constant. That's not legacy thinking. That's institutional knowledge. The applause was genuine, but what mattered more were the conversations afterward. Young analysts asking about career development, mid-career professionals wondering how to position their growing experience. Senior people sharing stories about being modernized out of organizations they'd served faithfully for decades. I realized that my story wasn't unique. It was representative of something happening across corporate America, the systematic devaluation of experience in favor of speed, innovation, and cost-cutting. 3 months ago, I got a call from an unexpected source. General Andrew Clark, the new board chairman at my former company, wanted to discuss bringing me back as a consultant to rebuild their security program. I listened to his pitch: substantial consulting fees, complete authority over security architecture, direct reporting to the board instead of through executive management. Everything that had been impossible when I was an employee was suddenly available as a contractor. We've learned some hard lessons, the general said. The board realizes now that security isn't a technology problem, it's a leadership problem. We need someone who understands both the technical and business implications of our decisions. I declined politely, not because the offer wasn't generous, but because some lessons can only be learned through experience. They needed to rebuild their security culture from scratch with leaders who understood its value before crisis forced the education. Besides, I had more important work to do. The National Security Agency reached out last month. They're developing new guidelines for protecting manufacturing infrastructure and want industry veterans on the advisory committee. The appointment comes with security clearance and direct input into policies that will protect power grids, financial systems, and communication networks. It's the kind of recognition that takes a career to earn. The irony is that I'm getting it now at 58 precisely because I refuse to accept that experience was obsolete. Looking back, I understand what really happened in Tyler's corner office. He didn't just deny me a raise. He revealed the fundamental misunderstanding that defines too much of modern corporate culture. The belief that experience is cost, not investment. They learned otherwise. It just cost them their reputation, their customers' trust, and congressional oversight to get the education. If you're listening to this and you recognize the pattern, understand something important. Your experience isn't outdated because technology advances. Your judgment, your crisis management skills, your understanding of how systems fail under pressure, none of that becomes obsolete just because someone invents a newer tool. Don't let anyone convince you that wisdom is weakness. Document your work, know your worth. Don't confuse loyalty with invisibility. Because when the real test comes, organizations don't ask for the cheapest solution or the fastest implementation. They ask for someone who's seen it all before and knows how to make it stop.